Arcia hits Cedric in the face with a turkey leg, causing him to collapse and fall slowly to the ground. Everyone is shocked by what they witnessed. However, Adrian watches with joy as Cedric falls. As Cedric lies on the ground, everyone falls silent. Adrian looks at Cedric with a smile, thinking about how Cedric, who had been acting so proud, ended up being grabbed and beaten with a chicken leg by a woman half his size. Crone steps forward and tells him to stop because it's enough. Then he draws his sword and tells Adrian that he's crossing a line he shouldn't. Adrian thinks the Knight Commander has drew his sword like a royal guard protecting the king. He then asks Crone if he isn't the one crossing the line now. Adrian tells Crone that Cedric has done so many things over time that he can't even remember, or he simply has no shame. This makes Cedric angry. He asks Crone what he's doing and shouts that those people dared to harm him, so they deserve to be killed. Crone tells Cedric that of course they must die, and Cedric shouts in agreement. But then Crone tells Cedric that as a vassal, he couldn't harm the second young master, who is a member of the Lord's family. This makes Cedric furious. However, Crone points his sword at Arcia, who is peacefully eating the chicken leg, and says that it's a different story with her. There's no room for consideration for a commoner who dared to raise her hand against a noble, so he would proceed directly to judgment without a trial. Crone raises his sword and asks Arcia if she thinks she's noble just because she's a noble's lover. But when he's about to strike her, Billiam and the other vanguards point their swords at Crone. Crone asks Billiam what he's doing and tells him to step back immediately. But Billiam says that he wouldn't have drawn his sword if he was going to back off. He warns Crone to step away from Lady Arcia immediately. Crone asks if he said Lady Arcia and finds it strange because he can see people from Cedric's faction too. Also, most of those individuals would prioritize profit over loyalty. He wonders why even such cunning individuals are willing to follow Adrian, making him think that something doesn't seem right. Then a lot of knights appear, and Cedric immediately runs toward his mother. Adrian notices that reinforcements are there and realizes that no wonders why Anna, who had always been sensitive when it came to Cedric, was so quiet. He wonders if she was gathering the knights over the phone. Cedric teasingly tells Adrian that there's no use in regretting now, and including Billiam, all of them will be thoroughly punished for their crimes. Adrian furiously tells the knights that they're in the presence of the Lord and asks them how dare the knights of the Viscount stand on the opposite side of their lord. But Cedric just orders the knights to subdue those troublemakers immediately. The knights run forward and point their weapons at them, making Adrian realize that in terms of numbers, their expeditionary forces have more soldiers, but they're not armed properly. In contrast, Cedric's faction has more than 10 armed soldiers and their equipment is overwhelmingly better. So if a full-scale battle broke out, it would be a one-sided slaughter. Suddenly, Crone asks him why he did such a useless thing, and tells him that it seems like he's still drunk on his victory, forgetting his position. Then he tells Adrian that his family system cannot be changed, and because of his recklessness, the only people who ended up seeing blood were those guys. Also, he wouldn't be killed immediately. However, even if he lives, only hell awaits him. A life that is even worse than it is now. Adrian just keeps quiet. Rayford shouts at him to use the artifact while Sylvia apologizes to Rayford in fear. Cedric teasingly tells him to run away no matter what. Crone tells the knights on their side to be ready to attack, to which the knights point their weapons at them. But Adrian just calls them foolish individuals. He tells the knights on their side that they are rebelling and those troublemakers are trying to harm the Lord, so they should protect the Lord. The knights on Adrian's side immediately reply yes. This makes Crone wonder what the hell those guys are doing. Adrian tells Crone that anyone can tell the ones committing treason are them and they should put an end to that boring act. Then Adrian removes the illusion magic and orders Arcia to bring those three to him and take care of the rest, to which Arcia replies yes and disappears. Anna and Cedric are shocked to see the knights surrounding them being killed rapidly. Also, the knights behind Crone are easily killed without a trace of who the killer is, making him fearfully confused. Suddenly, Adrian appears behind Crone and asks him what he had just said to him. Then he slaps his staff on Crone's face, calling him a traitor, and tells him that he requires discipline. Crone shakes in fear, knowing that it's impossible. Then he notices that the woman just now is an aura master and wonders if that game addict Adrian just dealt damage to him. Crone shouts to his people that Arcia is an aura master and orders them to get into a formation centered around the armed knights and face her. He also tells them to keep calm and be able to deal with her. Adrian tells Crone that he can't believe he still managed to give instructions to his subordinate in the midst of all of it, but he expected it from a knight commander like him, even though it's not going to change anything. Crone asks him what the hell he is, and Adrian answers him that he is a teacher who is going to teach them a valuable life lesson. Meanwhile, he increases his agility, physical strength, mana, and defense. Crone knows that wizards can use magic 2 classes lower than their level without casting, which means that if they are a 7th circle wizard, they can use 5th circle magic without any casting, a skill that proves their existence as an archmage. This skill allows them to overwhelm the wizard killer vanguard, so the moment they become archmages, the so-called weakness of a wizard almost disappears. Adrian uses his memorized cast save magic and attacks Crone with his flame blast, making Crone shout in pain. After that, Adrian walks closer in front of Cedric, who falls to the ground in shock. He tells them that he thinks they will have a lot of fun from now on and asks them if they don't think so. While Crone, who was burning, attacks him from behind and calls him a bastard, but Adrian quickly moves to the side to dodge Crone's attack. He tells Crone that he should have stayed on the ground and asks him why he got up, making Crone look at him in anger. Anna and Cedric shake in fear when they see him attack Crone, then Crone falls to the ground. They both wonder how it could be and how Adrian Lawrence could become an archmage, but he just smiles at them, making them realize that they are in trouble. Later, in another mansion, a man angrily slams his hand on the table. He is Anna's father, Raven Margrave. Furiously, he asks how that bastard Adrian dared to do those deeds to his precious daughter and grandson. The men show Raven what happened at Adrian's mansion using a device, which makes Raven furiously ask what the heck is this. One of the men explains that the video is constantly spreading on various portals and platforms. By tomorrow, most people will become aware of the situation, and some even speculate that Cedric Lawrence and Anna Lawrence's acts of treason were done with his support. Raven dismisses the significance of commoners' talk online, but learns that even some nobles are entertaining these speculations. Raven confidently asserts that the best those people can do is file complaints. He recognizes the value of an archmage and an aura master, but believes that winning a war requires more than just a couple of superhumans. Additionally, supporting them would mean opposing him, as he wields significant military power. Although he acknowledges the potential for trouble if nobles of his rank side with Adrian, he deems it unlikely, considering their vested interest in maintaining their positions. The man suggests that the royal family may intervene. Raven responds that it's evident because a young archmage and an aura master would naturally attract attention. However, he adds a caveat, stating that this assumption holds true only if it is indeed factual. This statement shocks and confuses the man. Raven then proposes a strategy. They could discredit the individuals in the video, portraying them as swindlers. As long as the public doesn't believe they are genuine archmage and aura master, there should be no issue. He questions whether there is any assurance that the video wasn't artificially created given the technology of the era. Raven suggests they could counter by claiming the video was fabricated. However, the man warns him about the consequences once the video is authenticated. Despite this warning, Raven insists they act swiftly to address the situation before the video's authenticity is verified. He expresses frustration, emphasizing that the video exposes his involvement with Anna and Cedric, and that the commoners are playing into their hands, seeking justification for their true agenda of his war. The man fearfully responds that it's impossible and questions if they're out of their minds, wondering if they're considering picking a fight with the Margrave. Raven calmly asks the man how much their forces could be mobilized in a territorial war. One of the men explains that they can mobilize about half of their total forces for their territory, which includes 3 sky fortresses and 150 vanguards, or 2 sky fortresses and 200 vanguards. Raven then inquires about the forces available for mobilization right now. One of the men answers, 2,200 vanguards and 1 sky fortress. Raven concludes that it's enough and wonders how a brat who is still wet behind the ears dares to provoke him. He then announces to everyone that it's war and he will make Adrian regret it. Meanwhile, in Adrian's mansion, he scratches his ears, thinking that they must have checked the video they released by now and are preparing to attack because his ears are itchy, indicating they must be talking about him. He knows the relationship between Anna, Cedric, and Raven Margrave is inseparable. His blade of revenge is only complete when it reaches Raven Margrave. However, to solidify his position, there are conditions that must be met in advance. Meanwhile, a young lady approaches with 2 men and introduces herself to Adrian as Olivia Riverdale, the daughter of kind Riverdale. Adrian recognizes that Duchess Olivia is an archmage belonging to the Lewis Kingdom. He knows that she is said to be the closest to the 8th circle among the archmages in the Lewis Kingdom, and her existence is equal to that of the patriarch of the Riverdale family, to which the 6 archmages belong. Unlike him, who gains strength through lucky encounters, Olivia is a true genius who reached the 7th circle at the age of 22. As they sit together, she gives the ID to the men with her and tells them that it looks real to her. Then the other men confirm that it definitely seems real, which makes Adrian exhale in relief. He asks her if it means that they have acknowledged it, but she tells him that she's only saying it looks real, as it's completely possible to forge that platinum plaque in the first place. Then, out of nowhere, she attacks him with strong pressure, making the glass cup on the table shatter into pieces. He notices that they are putting pressure on him by resonating with each other's circles, making him feel heavy and in pain. So he uses his magic power to make them stop, surprising Olivia. Adrian angrily asks them what the meaning of it is, but Olivia simply tells him that it was incredible, while the men cheer for him. Olivia explains that it was nothing much and they just wanted to test his skills while recovering the shattered glass cup. Adrian suggests that surely she would have been able to check it without resorting to something like this. Olivia responds that having 7 circles doesn't mean everyone is the same, and she just wanted to measure his exact level. Adrian reflects on Olivia's seemingly delicate appearance contrasted with her tough methods. He then asks her if he has earned her acknowledgement now. Olivia responds that she still has many questions, but there was no reason to turn away a genius archmage who claimed to be her father's disciple and was helping her family expand its influence. Adrian notices that Olivia doesn't seem to care much about whether or not he is real, and he feels that she is just welcoming another archmage. This makes him think that she has a sensible way of thinking, and he asks her what if he turns out to be a bad guy who will cause her family to suffer losses. She tells him that turning their family into his enemy is no different from asking for death, and she doubts anyone can afford it. Also, they have already confirmed his identity because they don't take in just anyone. This makes him smile and think that since he has received their recognition, there is no reason to argue anymore. Then he tells them that he'd like to make a request. The next day, Raven asks his butler how much longer it will take to deploy the troops. The butler replies that it will take at least 1 more hour. Raven asks if it can't be a little faster. However, a panicked man calls him from behind and tells him to take a look at that video. This makes Raven angry and he asks what it is this time. He then sees Olivia in the video announcing that she'd like to make an announcement. Today, she officially announces that the young master Adrian Lawrence, a disciple of the former Duke of Riverdale, became an archmage of the 7th Circle at the age of 20. She also announces that Adrian is a rare magic genius and a talent expected to achieve the 8th Circle. Riverdale will do their best to assist Adrian and spare no effort to support his growth. Raven realizes that Adrian is already 1 step ahead, as if Adrian had read his thoughts. The butler expresses disbelief that Riverdale will intervene and suggests that the royal family will undoubtedly intervene as well. However, Raven is more upset to hear Olivia saying that if anyone tries to harm Adrian, that Riverdale will take it as an act of antagonism against them. Raven furiously slams the video device on the ground and catches his breath for a moment. Then he tells the men that they are moving as scheduled. The butler asks him what he said, but he just asks his butler if he didn't hear him and tells him that they'll be moving as planned. The butler attempts to remind him about the royal family, but he quickly interrupts, questioning whether the royal family has caught up to their expedition and commanding them not to attack Lawrence's territory. The butler expresses concern, explaining that the risks are too high. However, Raven dismisses this, asserting that as long as they achieve their goal, they can overcome any obstacle. The butler then points out that Riverdale is supporting Adrian, suggesting they should halt their expedition. Angered, Raven rebuffs his butler's suggestion, emphasizing that their foreign status makes it irrelevant. He believes Adrian will be relieved by their inability to attack, making their surprise attack more effective. Raven then orders his people to complete preparations and deploy troops quickly, questioning if they understand, unaware of Crowley, the Black Eagle flying overhead. The butler assures Raven that he understands and promises to expedite the preparations even further. With a shared vision of Crowley, Adrian anticipates Raven every move. Earlier, Adrian has requested Olivia to hold a press conference. Olivia asks if that's all Raven wants and offers further support as a fellow disciple, but he declines, stating he only requires acknowledgement as the former Duke of Riverdale's disciple and an archmage. Olivia expresses confusion, prompting Raven to smile, stand up, and announce to Arcia that it's time to leave. He reflects that when seeking revenge, he prefers not to rely on anyone else's assistance. Adrian ponders whether revenge is solely for self-satisfaction, realizing that everything must proceed according to his plan and under his leadership. Viewing those individuals as his prey, he harbors no desire to share the thrill of hunting them with others. Meanwhile, Adrian's men are underground, with the knights in a state of panic. They shout that the prisoners have escaped and begin searching frantically. Despite the chaos, they continue searching, suggesting that the fugitives could still be hiding. Unnoticed, Anna sneaks behind them and ascends the stairs with Cedric and other men, clutching a key in her hand. The Sky Fortress slowly got closer to the mansion, prompting Anna, Cedric, and the other men to rush toward it. Anna remarks that it's akin to living death, asserting that her father won't abandon them. Cedric questions if she's truly going through with it, and Anna angrily retorts, asking him what else they could do when they can't live like this. Cedric concedes, telling her to be quiet and keep up. Moments later, they reach the top, and Anna looks up the Sky Fortress. She raises her key before it, and the system asks if she would like to enter. Anna replies affirmatively, and they are all summoned and transported inside. Anna wastes no time in removing her coat, vowing to assure Adrian's demise. Furiously, she murmurs, questioning if Adrian thought she'd stay down and asserting her capability to destroy him and the Viscounty with the Sky Fortress. She then inputs her name into the key, completing the verification process. The system inquires if she is attempting to activate the Sky Fortress under threat due to its unstable biorhythm, to which Anna responds negatively, and her answer is verified. The system confirms that the activation of Sky Fortress Janet is complete and welcomes Anna as admin. She immediately orders it to prepare the main cannon Firestorm to target the Viscounty and fire as soon as possible. However, Adrian appears from nowhere and swiftly covers her mouth in time to prevent it. He tells her that she acted exactly as he predicted and thanks her for unlocking the security for Sky Fortress, causing her to panic and wonder when Adrian got in. Then she hears her men being dragged and Cedric being beaten up easily by Arcia. Adrian informs her that attempting to shoot the Viscounty with Sky Fortress only adds to her crimes. He warns that Raven Margrave's troops are nearly there, so she and her brother must protect the land with their own bodies. Adrian expresses satisfaction with her anxiety, questioning if criminals can be proud. He then throws her to the floor, remarking on the extensive security measures in Sky Fortress, but praising her for unlocking them, as it allows him to do as he pleases. Anna attempts to reason with Adrian, suggesting they calm down and talk, as they are all in this together. However, Adrian ignores her and proceeds to interact with the Sky Fortress systems. Despite Anna's efforts to intervene, he remains focused on his own agenda. She then orders Arcia to stop hitting Cedric and brings him over. Cedric questions Adrian's actions, highlighting their familial bond, but Adrian dismisses it, locking them in with his great shield. Arcia inquires about the knights, who plead for mercy despite their crimes. Adrian identifies them as Raven Margrave's people and decides to send them away. Suddenly, the ground beneath the knights collapses, and they fall out of the Sky Fortress. Adrian coldly remarks that they shall serve as fertilizer for the land of Earldom Raven. Adrian reminds Arcia that he forgot to upload the video and orders her to edit it for him. As she approaches, she questions if he plans to upload more videos, to which he confirms and suggests it's not a bad idea. While Cedric and Anna attempt to escape on his shield, Adrian informs Arcia that he intends to utilize the media platform for political purposes. Meanwhile, at Raven's mansion, he discovers the news of Anna and Cedric stealing the Sky Fortress and attempting to assassinate Viscounty Lawrence. Raven starts reading comments on the video, alleging that Raven sold the retiring Sky Fortress to Lawrence's family and granted admin authority to his daughter, so this is all Raven's fault. Fuming, he asks his butler if he can execute every commenter who commented, but the butler explains the difficulty due to the Elysia Union's jurisdiction, which doesn't disclose users' personal information unless it involves a serious crime. Raven expresses frustration at the Elysia Union's stubbornness. Shortly after, his butler reports that one Sky Fortress and 200 vanguards are prepared for deployment. He then instructs the captain not to fail, and the captain assures him of his diligence. Angered, he commands them to proceed. The mages initiate their teleportation magic, gradually vanishing along with the vanguards in Sky Fortress, leaving him with his butler and remaining men. He ponders if he should have gone there himself, while Anna, trapped inside the shield, shouts at her father not to come. Moments later, a mana teleportation circle appears above Anna's Sky Fortress and Adrian senses it, yelling that they are there. He then orders to initiate the mana surge, causing the fortress to release electric power. Amidst tears, Cedric calls out to him, apologizing and begging for forgiveness for him and Anna. Anna, furious, demands to know what he's doing. Adrian responds that he's employing tactics learned from war, dubbing it a suicide bomb. Anna and Cedric are shocked as he bids them farewell teasingly, raising his glass of wine. A massive explosion, akin to fireworks, illuminates the sky. As he peacefully sips his wine, he reflects on the notion that some might consider revenge meaningless, but he vehemently disagrees, relishing in the sweet taste of alcohol like never before. Turning to Arcia, he suggests they make a wish, prompting her to inquire about the wish. He responds that they should make a wish while watching fireworks, enjoying the moment on August 15, 2019 in the Age of Magic. Having erased Anna and Cedric, who caused him trouble in that world, he now revels in his absolute freedom. Meanwhile, in Raven's mansion, Raven and his men remain silent in the room, awaiting updates on their troops. Frustrated, Raven demands to know why they can't reach them and questions if the operation isn't supposed to be completed by now. One of the men suggests it might be a communication failure, while another says that then they must have contacted through personal devices. Raven raises the possibility of a space disconnection caused by hastily conducted large-scale teleportation. As the possibility sinks in, he inquires about the spies they had planted previously. The man responds that they haven't been able to contact any of them since the incident involving Anna. Suspecting that their information might have been compromised and the spies arrested, Raven angrily questions the man who can't think of any other possibilities. The notion that the whole situation was pre-planned infuriates Raven further, prompting him to wonder since when it was all orchestrated. If true, he ponders if he's been outmaneuvered by a young brat barely his grandson's age. Determined to uncover the truth, Raven insists that someone in a regular residential area must still be in contact with them, besides the Lord's castle. One of the men suggests that it might be the effect of the space disconnection, but there was no connection to the general communication either. Suddenly, a panicked man calls him, informing him about an online article related to Lawrence's territory posted just 3 minutes ago. Upon viewing the video of a massive explosion and vanguards attacking their fortress, the rune falls silent. His butler explains that according to the article, an evacuation advisory was issued an hour ago, evacuating all residents of Viscounty Lawrence. While communication was completely cut off, a sudden explosion occurred in the sky. Communication was restored recently, along with an announcement from the Lord's castle. This makes Raven snap, and he destroys his table using only one hand, shocking and stunning his men. Then he throws a vase near him and his chair at the men. Silently looking at them for a moment, he asks how many additional troops can be deployed right now. One of the men replies that 75 vanguards or 25 vanguards and 1 sky fortress can be deployed, and any number beyond that would violate the law. He realizes that if the previously dispatched troops had the strength equal to 5 sky fortresses, they must now have the strength of only 1.5. Judging from the video, it's clear that Adrian sacrificed his sky fortress to carry out a suicide bombing attack. So no matter how old the sky fortress of Lawrence estate was, there's no way their forces would be intact if they got swept away from close range by a suicide bombing using a surge of mana. This only means one thing: Adrian was perfectly aware of their movements. However, Raven thinks Adrian still can't do the same thing twice, since they no longer have a sky fortress to blow up. The man tells him that unfortunately, that number is not enough to overwhelm the power of Viscounty Lawrence, and an emergency message has just arrived from the royal family stating that the use of force against Viscounty Lawrence is prohibited. This shocks him, but then he laughs loudly, making his men fearful. He asks if it's the price he has to pay for looking down on that bastard. He thinks it's possible to recover from the damage, but they won't be able to do it right away. It costs around 15 trillion to build 1 sky fortress and at least 50 billion for 1 set of Vanguard force equipment, so they need as much as 30 trillion for damage recovery alone. He can't believe that the power of their family, developed for generations, has collapsed due to a small mistake. He asks his man if he said that communication with Viscounty Lawrence has been restored, to which the man replies yes. Then he orders a man to get him on the phone with Adrian immediately. Meanwhile, it is revealed that the flying black eagle named Crowy is similar to Arcia, a reporter, but its primary method of use is completely different. While Arcia is a multipurpose entity like a human being, Crowy is a strictly focused auxiliary supporter. Its first skill is shared vision, which proves to be quite helpful. Adrian gets a call from Raven and tells him that he can't believe he would be shameless enough to call him. Raven acknowledges Adrian's ability because his trick worked well this time. However, he warns Adrian not to think his luck will continue next time. Adrian assures Raven not to worry because his revenge will only be complete with Raven's death and the fall of his family. Raven asks him what he means by revenge, and he says that he can't know it yet, and instead explains that Anna and his elder brother Cedric loved the Sky Fortress so much that he let them stay inside. He bets they must have been satisfied, as he even held such an expensive cremation ceremony for them. Raven expresses his disbelief at the consequences of his actions, warning that the outcome might not always be favorable. Despite his vow of retaliation, Adrian seems unfazed, noting Raven's sensitivity to insults aimed at himself. The exchange brings a smile to Adrian's face, suggesting a sense of superiority over Raven's reactions. Adrian asks Raven if he's currently located in a specific area within the Lord's castle, suggesting a surprise awaiting him. He then educates Raven about the advantages of memorization magic, explaining how it allows for the storage of multiple spells simultaneously. Adrian questions Raven about the potential outcome of having 10 7th circle magic spells memorized and cast simultaneously, wondering if they can breach Raven's castle shield. Meanwhile, Raven witnesses Black Eagle's display of 10 circles of magic, leaving him and his men astonished. Adrian informs Raven that the present he sent is 10 rounds of 7th circle magic Blaze Blast. Black Eagle unfurls its wings, releasing the magic circles and assaulting the castle. As it happens, Adrian laughs heartily, hearing the men panic and plead with Raven to use Blink or Teleport to escape swiftly. He hears Raven angrily shouting his name, but teasingly tells Raven that he will pray for his safety and hangs up the call, excusing himself. Adrian stands up when Billiam calls him and reports that as ordered, they have gathered the reporters in the conference hall. A moment later, the maid who was whispering behind his back before fearfully bows their heads to him as he walks past them. He looks at one of the servants and remembers that among the maids and servants of the Lord's castle, there was no one who hadn't looked down on him. He walks past the servants and maids trembling in fear, finding it amusing how they are all afraid of him. He knows it's time for him to say goodbye to his past of playing a dumbass because the second act of his splendid life has begun. In the news, it's reported that young Master Adrian Lawrence held a conference about the Sky Fortress suicide attack incident. It was revealed that Raven Margrave secretly deployed 1 Sky Fortress and 200 vanguards, all of which turned into ash in a split second. In news reports, some blame Adrian for copying the tactic used in the war with the Croatian Empire, while others acknowledge that this was the result of great predictions in information warfare. Adrian emphasized that none of this would have happened if Raven Margrave had not planned his malicious attacks, stating that he did what he had to do to protect his land. Raven Margrave's castle collapsed and Raven survived but took massive damage from an unexpected counterattack. The most prominent headline was young prodigy Adrian Lawrence shuts down Raven Margrave. The post asked viewers for their thoughts on the news, and commentators shared various opinions, with some believing that the Sky Fortress of Ravens deserved defeat. While others praise Adrian's intelligence and see this as a new era for the Reinhardt kingdom, there are also those who view it as a typical noble family feud and more. Meanwhile, Adrian smiles as he reads the comments, thanking everyone for their support and expressing his gratitude. He tells them that he will never forget it, and this makes him excited as he realizes he has reached 1 million followers in just a day, becoming an influencer. Billiam expresses his concern about people blaming Adrian for bringing down a renowned noble, but Adrian dismisses it, saying that he isn't backing down anymore. Billiam remembers that Adrian has lived his whole life being suppressed, but now he seems determined to take control of his destiny. Adrian notices that the Raven Margrave incident has caused controversy both within and outside the country, with articles criticizing him as well. However, despite the Raven family's solid reputation, public opinion is biased in his favor, leading even those on the neutral side to join his cause. It's as if the entire nation is on his side and public opinion is in his favor. Adrian knows that commoners are essentially slaves to nobles, but he feels different because he can benefit from the people's support. He has to prove himself that he is different from those people, and he'll do it by constantly communicating with them. He thinks discrimination toward commoners from nobles is a structural problem in Riverdale, not because commoners are worse than them, and most of the talented people he finds are commoners too. Suddenly, Rayford calls him and tells him that an order to appear has come for him, making him shocked. Then he reads that Arshia Klein and Adrian are ordered to present themselves at the Board of Inspection, making him notice that it is sure but forceful. Adrian reflects on 3 possible motivations behind the order: Raven Margrave's strategy, the High Nobles' attempt to assert control, or the Royal Council's agenda. He is convinced that they wouldn't issue such an order for amicable reasons. Billiam asks Adrian if he has a plan, to which Adrian confidently responds in the affirmative. He then queries his father about what nobles value most, to which his father asserts it's money. Adrian agrees and unveils his strategy to sway opinions using financial incentives. Rayford expresses a desire for further elaboration, prompting Adrian to explain his intention to use taxed investment profits to alter perspectives. His father questions if he intends to divert attention from this issue by creating a new issue, to which Adrian affirms. Observing their muted reactions, Adrian senses their disapproval of his approach, but he believes it's better to show them rather than just talk. He reveals his substantial loot balance, shocking them all. Billiam excitedly exclaims that it's amazing and questions how Adrian could accumulate 60 billion. Adrian corrects him, indicating that there are 4 commons, not 3, in his loot balance, totaling 60 trillion. Billiam is left confused and incredulous at the vast sum. Adrian attributes his fortune to luck when Billiam anxiously asks if he can foresee the future or if he's reincarnated. Adrian brushes off the question as a joke. Rayford expresses concern about the repercussions, prompting Adrian to ask him how much he estimates the tax to be. Rayford suggests it could be at least 1/5 or 12 trillion. Adrian mentions that if a noble pays a significant amount in tax, the Royal Guild may grant tax exemption. Rayford confirms that using merchants operated by the royal family would grant tax exemption on half of the tax Adrian was paying, which he sees as a good opportunity since he already planned on using the money. Rayford inquires if Adrian has anything else he wants to buy, to which Adrian replies affirmatively. Adrian then informs his father that he intends to acquire more Sky Fortresses and Vanguards. The next day, news reports emerge stating that Adrian Lawrence has completed reporting taxes for the money earned from investing, with the amount totaling 60 trillion, shaking the noble society. Meanwhile, Otis happily laughs and tells his family that Adrian, the eccentric man, surely knows how to surprise people. His wife asks if Adrian is the staff member he mentioned before, and Otis confirms, adding that he can't call Adrian his staff anymore since Adrian will soon be titled as a Grand Wizard for reaching the 7th circle. Otis expresses his wish for Michelle to get to know Adrian better, but he feels Adrian has become too prominent within a few days. His wife asks if he can't still make something happen, expressing her desire for Adrian to be her son-in-law. Michelle, their daughter, admits that Adrian's face fits her type, but she doesn't want to be someone who benefits from a partner. She wants to earn her authority on her own. Her mother questions how she plans to achieve this, to which Michelle replies confidently that it'll be easy once she discovers Archduke Manuel Lucas's fate. Despite her mother's scolding, Michelle remains determined, asserting that it's possible. Otis makes it sound like he's realized something, causing his wife and daughter to stop and ask him why. He explains that it all makes sense if Adrian is the one who found Archduke Lucas's fate, and Adrian's boldness also makes sense. Michelle mentions that the Riverdale family accepted Adrian as one of them, but Otis remarks that it's perfect for Adrian since he doesn't have a strong presence and can hide under the Riverdale family. He adds that Adrian is the type of person capable of perfectly hiding himself until he reaches the Lord Wizard status. Michelle mentions that the Royal Guild also confirmed that all of Adrian's money came from investing, to which Otis suggests that there might be a deal between the Riverdale family and Reinhardt royals. Michelle asks her father if he likes conspiracy theory novels, but they are interrupted by breaking news. The public priest announces that they found Manuel Lucas's lucky encounter, leaving Michelle shocked and angry. Meanwhile, in Manuel Lucas's tower, Adrian expresses frustration at not being able to absorb research books like skill books. He knows he has a busy schedule ahead, including an inspection with Arcia and a party held by the royals. Adrian continues to log in whenever he gets a spare moment, throwing finished books aside and grabbing more from the shelves. Despite the vast collection, he knows there's less than 1% of military research among them. The weapons Archduke Lucas invented changed the way of war, yet Lucas himself is against war. His main research focus was on dimension teleportation. Lucas never married, never had a disciple, and spent his entire life researching a way back home. It's widely believed that Lucas changed the world, but in reality he longed for his home. The traces he left indicating he was from Earth were likely to meet someone from his homeland, though this occurred after his passing. Lucas's legacy became his hope to return home, but lacking the ability to do so himself, he perhaps hoped someone else would finish his research. Adrian ponders if Lucas wanted him to go back, unable to do so himself, acknowledging that if that's what Lucas wished, he would try his best to fulfill it. Meanwhile, Chester appears and tells Adrian that he admires his humility. Adrian brushes it off, considering himself just an ordinary person. Chester praises Adrian for his modesty. Adrian then confides in Chester, expressing concern about the possibility of being caught laundering money. Chester reassures him, explaining that the chances are slim. He elaborates, pointing out that the vast amount of money involved in investments across the world would make it unlikely for anyone to notice. Adrian feels relieved, realizing that the scheme is less risky than he initially thought. However, he acknowledges the increased attention on him due to his status as a 7th Circle Grand Wizard and Arcia being an Aura Master. Adrian decides to keep his involvement in finding Manuel Lucas's fate a secret to avoid jeopardizing his current position. He informs Chester that his previous statement was just a confirmation, and then he poses his actual question. Curious about the progress of the fake Lucky Encounter operation, he inquires about its status. Meanwhile, outside, people cheer for Louis Fairmont, hailing him as the national hero of the Prius Republic. Louis, the possessor of the fake Lucky Encounter, stands atop a car amidst a crowd, accompanied by numerous bodyguards. He waves to his supporters, basking in their adulation. Louis, 29 years old and an intelligence agent for the Prius Republic, is also the son of President Cartro, leveraging his father's status for personal gain. The objective of the fake Lucky Encounter operation is to divert the world's attention away from Adrian by fabricating a new possessor of Archmage Manuel Lucas's Lucky Encounter. For the operation, Adrian aims to dispel any doubts about him and buy time until he reaches the 9th Circle. While he doesn't regret entrusting Louis with the bomb, he is troubled by the thought of someone like Louis inheriting Archmage Manuel Lucas's legacy. Chester acknowledges that they lack the strength to safeguard the Lucky Encounter alone, deeming Adrian's decision wise. Adrian understands that the Prius Republic, one of the 4 major empires in Riverdale, portrays itself as a democratic nation. However, corruption and collusion between politics and businesses prevail, rendering it akin to a dictatorship where the president holds power for extended periods, up to 14 years. Adrian questions Chester about the potential impact on President Cartro's approval ratings, to which Chester acknowledges the possibility of an increase. However, he emphasizes that the county's situation would remain unchanged regardless of the news about the Lucky Encounter. Adrian expresses his hope that only Lewis and Cartro will suffer from the incident, but Chester reveals that a diplomatic war involving multiple countries is inevitable, causing widespread damage. Despite this, Chester believes that Adrian's actions will ultimately lead to positive change in the corrupt Fairmont regime. Adrian expresses concern about potential innocent victims arising from the operation and asks Chester to identify them if they do. Chester admits that normally he would refuse such a request, but he agrees this time due to their previous oversight. Adrian is surprised by Chester's quick acceptance, as he believed there was no lack of consideration. However, Chester explains that Adrian's concern for others' lives was unexpected, prompting Adrian to inquire about the supposed lack of consideration. Chester questions if Adrian hesitated before eliminating Anna, Cedric, and Raven Margrave's forces, to which Adrian responds that they were his enemies. Chester acknowledges Adrian's mindset but emphasizes the importance of preventing innocent casualties while showing no mercy to enemies. Adrian reflects on how Chester appears more human-like in such moments, contemplating if he can create beings similar to Arcia or Chester once he reaches the ninth circle. Chester informs Adrian that he still has one remaining administrative privilege and asks if he wants to use it. Adrian decides to hold onto it for emergencies. He instructs Arcia and Crow to go hunting, considering his current level at 205 and the distance to reaching level 250. The next day at Lawrence's mansion, a servant discusses Adrian's plan to purchase 5 sky fortresses with a friend. The friend questions the feasibility of this plan due to the limit on sky fortresses for viscounts and barons. The servant dismisses this skepticism, suggesting that Adrian likely made these plans with the anticipation of receiving the Earl's title, also mentioning Adrian's intention to meet the military limits of Vanguard force equipment. The maid asks the head maid if it's acceptable for one family to hold so many lordships. The head maid assures her that it's justified based on merit, expressing concern about talented individuals leaving due to mistreatment. She emphasizes that Adrian isn't just a new noble in name. He possesses significant military capabilities, signifying a new power in the Reinhardt Kingdom. Their conversation halts when they hear a jingle sound. One of the maids tells the others to wait and suggests pausing their conversation. Another maid asks why, and she explains that Arcia had just called, so she needs to go quickly. The other maids inquire about the call when it's their turn, eager to go too. However, the maid leading the way asserts her authority, stating she's in charge of Arcia today. She pushes the trolley of food, feeling angry at how the other maids disregarded her seniority. Most of the servants at the Lord's castle originally worked for Anna. With Anna gone, they feel uneasy, as if walking on thin ice every day. Despite their past sins against the young master, they're reluctant to quit their jobs, given the good working environment and guaranteed future. As a result, they often argue over who gets to serve Arcia, seeing it as a less burdensome task. The maid places the pancake on the table and glances at Arcia, recognizing her gentle demeanor despite her fearsome title as a master. Arcia often wears a soft smile, contrasting with her imposing status. The maid marvels at Arcia's ascent from a commoner background to the rank of an earl, admiring her power. Arcia notices the maid's hesitation and invites her to speak. The maid, still unsure, asks if she can pose a question. Arcia assures her she can answer, prompting the maid to inquire about Adrian's stance on firing the castle's managers. Arcia responds that Adrian is a good person who dislikes seeing others suffer because of him. However, Adrian is cold to those whom he deems his enemies. She asks the maid if she is Adrian's enemy. The maid fearfully looks down under her gaze and replies that she is not. Arcia smiles and reassures her that it's fine if that's the case. The maid hurriedly leaves Arcia's room, surprising Adrian, who is outside. She looks at him fearfully and runs away while apologizing to both him and Arcia. Adrian asks Arcia why the maid was acting like that, noting her terror. Arcia replies that she didn't know. That day, a rumor spreads that Adrian never forgets favors or spite, and that Arcia hates people who look down on her lover. While in the car, Lopes awkwardly asks Adrian if they can really follow him to the royal castle. Adrian looks confused and asks Lopes what he means. Lopes replies that Eric and he are still lacking. Adrian recalls swearing during the war against the Croizon Empire that besides leveling up in the game, he was preoccupied with discovering talents with great potential using his magic glasses. Meanwhile, Eric calmly tells Lopes that he doesn't think Adrian would summon them for no reason, and that Adrian must have a plan. Adrian explains that he called them because he wanted to give them a little more experience. Currently, there are 4 vanguards acting as escorts, along with Lopes and Eric, who are members of the Institute for Gifted Talents. They are heading to the royal castle to be investigated by the Audit and Inspection Board for nobles. Adrian tells them that they will probably see many nobles in the royal castle today, and if they're lucky, they might even see the royal family. So they should pay close attention to the individuals leading the country. That's their task for today. Lopes nervously replies that he will do his best. Adrian notices that if Lopes wants to rise up in the future, he must learn to be a little bolder. The knight informs them that they have arrived at the teleportation gate, and Adrian tells the knight to depart immediately, to which the knight obeys. They depart to the place with huge buildings. Lopes is amazed to see it, but he just silently looks out the window and knows that they have arrived at the capital of Reinhardt's kingdom, Lionel. A moment later, they are met by the maids, who are amazed to see him, with people telling him that he looks much better in person. In the royal administrative building, the nobles are cheering for him and Erika. A man tells him that they both are very popular, but he just shrugs it off, saying the media hypes them too much. The man mentions how crazy things have been lately because of them, making him notice that it isn't crazy in a good way. He informs Adrian that, as expected, the major power class doesn't like it, but he is famous among the non-inherited nobles, having earned his place through his own work. The man's name is Baron Harris Walker, a high-ranking administrator and noble inspector leader. Baron possesses exceptional intelligence, high administrative power, strong leadership abilities, and a high learning ability. His defining trait is integrity as a leader, and his relationships with others are generally friendly and neutral. Currently, he feels mentally exhausted and skeptical, wondering why he possesses such high-end talents in the integrity leader trait. Adrian calls Baron, who immediately bows and apologizes for talking too much. However, Adrian hands Baron his card, telling him that it isn't about his chatter, and insists he take the card. Baron asks why he's being given the card and whether it isn't his own. Adrian explains that when he becomes a viscount, he plans to appoint a talented administrator to manage his territory. If Baron is interested, he should call him, as he'll ensure he receives the best treatment. This leaves Baron stunned and confused. A few minutes later, Baron informs them that they have arrived at investigation room number 1. He explains that only Adrian and Arcia are allowed in that room, and the inspection will take around 2 to 3 hours. He suggests that their servants wait in the lobby. Adrian then tells Billiam and his scholars that he prefers they go on a tour around the area, and he will let them know when he is done. He also offers a generous allowance of 3 million loot. Lopes asks if he is sure, and he reassures them, stating that it is just a perfunctory inspection, so he'll be fine. His scholars and the vanguards salute him and wish him to stay safe. He agrees and tells them to ensure that everyone has a good time as well. Baron whispers to him, cautioning him to be careful as he isn't certain about what might transpire inside. The chief inspector is not pleased with him, and this has raised Baron's concerns. Adrian thanks Baron for the information and opens the door, pondering that he could always leave the county if problems arise inside. They are greeted by 4 men, and he is taken aback when he recognizes one of them. This is the reason Baron had been worried. The group includes Noble Chief Inspector Douglas Hamilton and the Second Prince, who is also the Royal Guard's No. 2 commander, and an aura master named Luke Wynn Reinhardt. Adrian can understand why the Chief Inspector is present, but he wonders why the second in line for the throne is sitting in front of him. He bows to Luke and expresses his honor in meeting the commander of the Royal Guards. Luke enthusiastically responds, noting that Adrian noticed him right away and acknowledges his status as an archwizard. However, Adrian points out that he'd be quite the spy if he didn't recognize the Second Prince while living in the same country. Luke allows him to raise his head, and the system displays Luke's affiliations. His talents include a very high level of aura mastery, high physical strength, and medium levels of learning ability, intelligence, leadership, and administrative skills. His traits are enhanced muscles and an arrogant leader, and his relationships are marked as interested and hostile. His current status is observing and curious. Adrian notices that Luke's stats are high, as expected from an aura master, but not as high as his fame. He speculates that the Second Prince probably had an aura master as his teacher and had consumed expensive elixirs and medicines regularly. Luke informs him that he will be leading the investigation and asks if that is acceptable to Adrian. Adrian responds that he will follow whatever the noble inspection decides. Douglas says to proceed, announcing that the investigation will be conducted by Prince Luke, to which Adrian replies with a yes, sir. He observes Luke, who appears uncomfortable, prompting Adrian to wonder if Prince Luke is uneasy due to his requests. Adrian apologizes for his impoliteness and explains that he had questioned Luke's decision. However, Luke assures him not to worry about it, for which Adrian expresses his gratitude. After they both take their seats, the investigation begins. Adrian recognizes that there is nothing particularly unusual about the investigation. Even if they hold something against him, he has a solid alibi. Prince Luke acknowledges that there seems to be no other solution for Adrian's situation. Still, Douglas points out that it had caused one-sided damage to the Raven Margrave side. Luke counters that it was described as an ambush, but it was clearly a territorial dispute. He adds that if a war had started, there could be unexpected collateral damage. Luke then asks Douglas if he believes that Adrian had completely demolished the Raven Margrave. Douglas apologizes and explains that he misspoke. Adrian is worried because his relationship with Luke is hostile. However, he thinks that Luke appears to be a fair person. Luke announces that there is no reason to continue the investigation because there is nothing to uncover. However, Douglas whispers to Prince Luke that the Raven Margrave was a significant force on their side. Adrian hears Douglas clearly and notices that the majority of the noble inspectors stand behind Luke, with some representing Raven Margrave's side. This leads him to speculate that Prince Luke's strained relationship with him might be due to the influence of people around him rather than his own choice. Adrian's initial impression of Luke was unfavorable, but he suspects that Prince Luke is actually a good person. Luke then asks Douglas if he expects him to be unreasonable and tells him to stop because the matter is settled. He calls Adrian, who responds and expresses his preference for straightforward discussions without loopholes. Adrian encourages him to proceed. Luke explains that he is in competition with his brother for the crown and they are evenly matched. However, things change, especially after Adrian's involvement with Raven Margrave, one of his primary supporters. He mentions that Adrian's refusal of support is all Raven's fault. Luke assures Adrian that he isn't blaming him and that if Adrian had joined his brother's side, things could have taken a turn for the worse. This revelation sheds light on Luke's true motives for participating in the investigation. The first prince already holds the title of Crown Prince, but there's certain unease because the second prince has become an aura master despite the even match between them. Adrian wonders how the second prince attained such a position when the first prince has rightful heritage and status in his favor. Although Raven's army has been significantly reduced, it's not enough to create a significant impact. The problem lies with him and Arcia, who seem to have appeared out of nowhere. Not only do they possess exceptional individual abilities, but they also have substantial funds, making them potential game changers capable of disrupting the balance. Adrian realizes there's no advantage in getting involved in political warfare. He informs Prince Luke that he's not ready to enter the political arena, especially since he hasn't acquired his title yet. However, Luke explains that this is precisely why it matters more. He tells Adrian that if he joins his side, he will value his status as an arch-wizard and his contributions in the previous war. He also promises to support him in obtaining the Marquis title, surprising Adrian. Adrian inquires if it's really possible, to which Luke replies that it isn't easy, but he can make it happen. Prince Luke also mentions that Adrian's Viscounty Marinikov sounds appealing. Adrian intends to remain neutral, but Prince Luke's offer is incredibly tempting. He expresses his surprise at the generous offer and asks if he's truly worth that much to Luke. Luke replies that he's worth more than Adrian thinks and mentions the beautiful aura master by his side, Arcia. Prince Luke smiles as he gazes at Arcia, leaving Adrian silently disappointed. Adrian requests some time to think it through, but Luke remarks that wizards are known for their caution, especially those who have spent most of their lives hidden. Adrian realizes that it isn't just caution, he simply doesn't like Prince Luke's behavior. Luke offers a week for him to consider, to which Adrian expresses his gratitude. Facing each other, Prince Luke asks Adrian if he believes that the crown should go to someone with the right abilities while extending his hand. Adrian accepts it, and Prince Luke emphasizes that if the crown prince ascends, the Reinhardt kingdom would decline. He urges Adrian to think about the country's future as a noble, to which Adrian agrees to take his words to heart. Prince Luke then turns to Arcia, shakes her hand, and expresses his surprise at her smaller stature, adding that it's almost surprising that she's an aura master. Arcia thanks him, and Prince Luke suggests they might spar later, as he's never seen a female aura master. Arcia gladly accepts, while Adrian observes their interaction. As Luke begins to leave, he tells Arcia that she seems very emotionless and that he'll see her next time. Douglas, walking behind Adrian, advises him to stop thinking and simply accept the offer, as Prince Luke is not accustomed to rejection. They exit the room, and Adrian thinks that Prince Luke is merely going through the motions and dragging out the process. He contemplates whether to return or explore further. He asks Arcia if she's hungry, to which she replies that she isn't really hungry, but has a strong craving for food at the moment, leaving Adrian to ponder if it isn't the same thing. He then recalls Prince Luke shaking Arcia's hand while making a joke about poop touching her hands and suggests they wash their hands. Arcia mentions that Luke also touched her left shoulder. Adrian proposes they have a meal since they're already out, mentioning that he knows a few restaurants in the area. Then someone from behind addresses them, saying it's nice, and reveals that he also knows many restaurants. A man with a handsome face appears and waves hello at them. Adrian is initially confused when he sees the man, who appears to be a powerful individual. To his shock, he realizes that the man is none other than the first Prince Michael van Reinhardt, a 5th Circle High Wizard. Michael's affiliations include Reinhardt's first prince and the Reinhardt Kingdom Ministry of Foreign Affairs. His talents are remarkably high, with very high intelligence, learning skill and administration, and high command and political abilities. On the other hand, his mana, aura, and physical abilities are low. His traits include photographic memory and conductor of stratagem, and his relationships are marked as curious and neutral. At the moment, he is using a face alteration spell, leaving Adrian astounded by his capabilities. Adrian notices that the first prince is moving around seemingly unnoticed by others. He wonders if the lack of attention is due to the face alteration spell. Michael comments that they make quite the pair as an archwizard and an aura master. However, he speculates that the spell doesn't work on those who aren't easily fooled, such as Michael's brother. Michael's behavior doesn't fit the typical image of a first prince. Adrian realizes that he can't afford to make an enemy out of someone like Michael, so he inquires if they could expect fine dining. Michael agrees and tells them to follow him as he guides them. Adrian notices that Michael's stats seem too exceptional for a human. His talents are heavily skewed toward politics and administration. Adrian had never seen a person with 3 very high talents except for Arcia, but Michael's overall stats exceed Arcia's. Arcia's stats aren't particularly high because they are focused on her sword skills. However, the first Prince Michael possesses 2 high-grade talents in addition to his 3 very high-grade talents. Despite having low mana, he has managed to become a high wizard with his wisdom. Michael notices Adrian staring and remarks that he seems to have many questions about him. Adrian comments that Michael is a more mysterious person than his younger brother, wondering how someone like Michael can remain relatively unknown to the public. Michael points to the door, indicating it is the way. As they enter the room, Adrian notices that it is a teleportation room. He mentions that he thought teleportation spells couldn't be used inside the castle due to the interruption barrier spell surrounding it. Michael asks if he doesn't know and explains that there is an underground electric stone mine that sometimes clashes with mana, causing interruptions in teleport spells. Michael retrieves a device from his coat and clicks it, causing the interruption spell, shielding the castle to slowly disappear. Adrian is shocked to see it vanish, and Michael informs them that it is time to go. They teleport, and Adrian can't shake the feeling that Michael is far from an ordinary person. Later, they arrive at their destination and Michael invites them to enter. The room is filled with golden shining objects, and Michael informs them that they can speak freely now. Suddenly, Michael realizes something and clicks the device he is holding once more. The interruption barrier once again shields the entire castle, and Michael chuckles, mentioning that the interruption spell is working again. In Adrian's mind, he acknowledges that it is Michael who has control over it and doubts that the second prince has any knowledge of the first prince's playful manipulation of security, as the second prince Luke is probably busy singing his own song all the time. They shake hands, and Adrian expresses his honor at meeting the crowned prince. Michael replies that it is an honor to meet Adrian and Arcia. The butler approaches Michael, inquiring if he is back, and Michael confirms it. He asks the butler to prepare a meal as he's going to have lunch with his guests. The butler assures him that he will prepare it right away. Adrian is amazed observing the butler, thinking that people with high-end talents seem to move around as if it were nothing. Adrian asks Michael if it is his palace, and Michael, while offering them juices, confirms that it is. He mentions that the palace's chef was hired personally, ensuring that he is one of the finest chefs in the country. Adrian acknowledges the importance of good food. Michael then asks Adrian if he knows that he follows him on social media, leaving Adrian surprised. Michael shows him his own social media account, which features the overpowered closed eyes profile picture. Adrian is shocked by this revelation and admits that he hadn't expected the crowned prince to have a social media presence. Michael explains that many nobles look down on the virtual world, but he is an exception as he enjoys it. Adrian knows that Michael van Reinhardt holds the title of crowned prince, but he treats him like a best friend. It feels genuine, unlike the second prince's behavior towards him. Adrian comments that Michael has a sense of humor, to which Michael responds that he does and that he enjoys reading Adrian's posts mocking the Raven Margrave. Adrian is surprised and asks if Michael has seen his posts because they have significantly helped him gain followers. Michael suggests that it is probably Adrian's looks that played a significant role in gaining followers. Adrian proudly acknowledges that indeed his appearance was a contributing factor. Michael laughs and agrees, saying that he knows Adrian is a handsome person. Arcia pays no attention to their banter and is focused on the food in front of her. Adrian asks Michael how he couldn't be aware of his own handsomeness when he saw his fan club greeting him upon entering the castle. Michael laughs again and admits that Adrian is right as they begin eating. Adrian inquires about the reason for their invitation. Michael responds with a question, asking if Adrian doesn't already know. Adrian responds that he had assumed they were being recruited, to which Michael agrees. Adrian asks Michael about his expectations and what he could offer them. Michael regretfully replies that he doesn't have anything to offer at the moment. Adrian inquires if Michael plans to provide benefits once he ascends to the throne, to which Michael confirms that he would. However, he also mentions that he would obstruct Adrian from obtaining the Viscount title. Michael explains that the Viscount title isn't something easily granted, and it is particularly challenging at that time due to the division of power. He also notes that it seems like Luke had promised him the title, thinking he had enough authority to do so. However, if the people on Luke's side disagreed, they could prevent Adrian from acquiring the title, which makes perfect sense. Adrian understands that Michael couldn't offer him the title as Prince Luke had done because Michael recognized it was an empty promise, and no one would simply allow the other party to grow stronger without opposition. Michael's statement about not stopping him from obtaining the Viscount title essentially implies that he would support Adrian in securing the title while aligning with the second prince's side. Michael suggests that Adrian would obtain the title by joining Luke's side, and his side wouldn't oppose it, making it an easy process. Adrian responds by saying he would take whatever he could get, and Michael invites him to join his side. Adrian considers the offer and realizes that the real wild card is the choice he makes to gain an advantage. If he accepts Michael's offer, he could obtain the title and align with the first prince. If he declines, his title would be at risk, and he would have to align with the second prince. He informs Michael that he has more choices, but there's only one answer. Michael asks him what he means, and Adrian replies that he will do as the crown prince instructs. Michael asks Adrian if he's certain he doesn't need more time to think, and Adrian replies that he's sure. He believes he deserves the throne more than the second prince. Michael reminds him that he can't simply make those claims to obtain the title and then remain on the second prince's side. Adrian states that he can't betray his followers and has no intention of doing so, as he believes the first prince will likely win against the second prince even without his support. Michael responds with a cheerful nice, while Arcia continues to enjoy her meal. A little later, when it's time for dessert, Adrian tells Michael that he has a question. He mentions that he's fine with joining Luke's side to obtain the title, but he asks Michael if Luke might become suspicious if he doesn't show any resistance. Michael responds affirmatively, explaining that he plans to pretend to resist initially and then back down later. Adrian realizes it's a clever way to avoid arousing suspicion. However, he also suggests that instead of ending it like that, he should receive something in return for allowing him to win the title. Michael is taken aback and asks for examples. Adrian smiles, realizing he has the chance to not only back down, but also gain some leverage over Luke. Adrian tells Michael that Raven Margrave suffered a great loss for messing with him, losing 40% of his power due to personal feelings while playing a major role in national defense. Consequently, Adrian believes Raven doesn't deserve the Margrave title. Michael asks if he means taking away the title from Raven for giving up the Viscount title, to which Adrian replies that he considers it a fair deal. Demoting Raven Margrave would inflict significant damage on Luke's side. Michael suggests that it seems like a personal matter, and Adrian admits he wouldn't deny it. He derives satisfaction from damaging their feud and having an opportunity to control Raven, making it clear he can't miss that chance. Michael then inquires about what would happen if Luke rejects the deal. Adrian responds that promoting one of his men to Margrave would also be a good option. He explains that he has earned the Viscount title as a reward for his merits in war, and it is a good time to promote one of the earls on his side who has also performed admirably in war. He emphasizes the significant difference between a new person becoming a Viscount to support the second prince and an earl on the first prince's side becoming a Margrave. He also notes that he could be a Viscount who possesses an aura master, implying that if Michael accepts the plan and everything goes smoothly, they can maximize their profits from his betrayal. However, he notices Michael's suspicion and confusion, but he is also intrigued by Michael's reaction, prompting him to wonder why he called Michael to get his attention. Michael apologizes, explaining that he was a little surprised. Michael then asks him if he could reveal who he had met on the second prince's side before meeting him. He observes Michael's keen green eyes, which shock him, and he reveals that he had met Baron, Prince Luke, Viscount Hamilton, and 6 other inspectors for his interrogation, totaling 9 people. He glances at Michael and ponders if he has made a mistake. Then he notices that Michael's suspicious demeanor is transformed into curiosity, which leads him to understand what is happening. He tells Michael that he now understands and is thinking along the same lines as him, causing Michael to laugh and ask if he can read other people's minds, since he had quickly grasped his betrayal plan. Adrian acknowledges that he cannot directly read someone's mind, but can make assumptions through his glasses. Michael becomes confused, concerned that there is a chance his plan had leaked because he had discussed it word by word without explicitly mentioning it. Michael tells him that it is amazing, and that he had been considering those 2 plans as well. Adrian admits that he had suggested a plan he had already formulated, which was impressive, and he feels embarrassed. Michael reassures him not to be embarrassed because it showcases his excellent decision-making abilities. Achieving the 7th circle at the age of 20 is not an accomplishment just anyone could claim. Michael also expresses his desire not to be his enemy and suggests that they should remain friends. They both laugh silently, agreeing with the sentiment. Moments later, Michael hands him a gadget and he accepts it while inquiring if it is a communication device. Michael confirms it and explains that it is a secure device that cannot be bugged. He informs him that he will contact him on that device if there is more to discuss and thanks him for the helpful and joyful meal.